assez brève. On éteint voilà, les téléphones. Majesté, Madame l'ambassadrice, chers membres et amis de la SES, eh bien, je vous souhaite la bienvenue dans cette magnifique salle que nous aimons beaucoup. Alors, la SES a vraiment le très grand plaisir d'accueillir professeure Anna Contadini, qui nous fait un grand honneur de venir et d'avoir accepté votre invitation, et donc qui arrive de Londres. Alors, professeur Contadini, donc, comme je vous ai dit, on aurait besoin d'une présentation de... J'ai vu des présentations de professeur Contadini qui ont duré 45 minutes. Mais bon, ici, ça va être simple. Donc, je vais faire un petit résumé. Alors, donc, elle est professeure d'histoire de l'art islamique à l'université SOAS de Londres. Et ses principaux domaines de recherche sont la culture du livre illustré dans le monde islamique, les études sur les objets, la translocation et la transculturation, ainsi que les contacts artistiques et culturels entre l'Europe et le monde islamique. Elle est diplômée en art arabe, islamique à l'université de Venise et a obtenu un diplôme aussi de piano, Conservatorio Benedetto Marcello. Elle a ensuite obtenu un doctorat en art islamique à la SOAS et a été nommée chercheur en études islamiques au Victoria Albert. Elle a ensuite été chargée de cours en art islamique au Trinity College, ainsi que conservatrice des collections islamiques de la très célèbre Chester Beatty Library à Dublin, avant d'occuper son poste à la SOAS. Professeur Contadini fait partie de nombreux comités internationaux d'évaluation. Elle a reçu de nombreux prix et distinctions, dont la médaille du Collège de France pour les mérites intellectuels et la contribution globale à l'histoire de l'art. En 2019, elle a été professeure invitée à nombre d'universités, dont Leiden, Heidelberg, Bologne, Harvard et à ITATI, qui est the Harvard Center for Italian Renaissance Studies. Et sans plus tarder, je lui passe la parole. Merci beaucoup. Ça marche? Oui. Ça marche? I think it's okay. When you're sitting ready, when you're ready, yes, it does. So yes, we try to have it a little bit at your. Est-ce que c'est à sa hauteur? C'est bon? Voilà, très bien, à la hauteur, parfait. I think it's okay, yes.
Well, thank you very much, Shehan, for this very nice presentation. And thank you very much to Monique Aid as well for inviting me tonight. I'm very honored to be here with your Royal Highness and with the Ambassador and with all of you. It's a great honor to come here, and I'm sorry we are a bit late, but my flight was late. So in this lecture, I shall discuss cultural and artistic connections between the Islamic world and Europe, especially during the Renaissance, placing particularly emphasis on translocated and transculturated objects. I analyze their contribution to the development of European art, with regard especially to the vocabulary of design. As their Arabic inscriptions are read and their origins are better understood, their agency changes along with new perceptions of them. They become part of the new awareness of Islamic culture, set in the context of the altered dynamic of European engagement with the steadily less threatening Ottoman Empire. A further crucial element is the transmission of knowledge that runs parallel to the acquisition of objects, enriching European scholarship in areas such as botany, medicine, and the understanding of the Greek philosophical heritage, and the understanding through Latin translations of the early Islamic authors writing their treatises in Arabic, Persian. Together, they highlight the importance of adopting a decolonizing lens for the study of the cultures and arts of the Islamic world. As we all know, there is no clear dividing line between the Renaissance and what preceded it. And in the present context, it is relevant to refer also to the already established patterns of contacts and acquisition that would continue and be further developed during the Renaissance. So we could briefly go back to Roger II Hauteville, first king of Sicily. Born in 1095, died in 1154, young Roger was educated by erudite Greek and Arab tutors, and at the court, Greek and Arabic were spoken in addition to Norman French and to the then emergent Italian. To him, we owe the extraordinary Palatine Chapel in Palermo. Dating from 1143, this has a typical Latin plan and glass mosaics on the walls representing biblical scenes. And you can see that there are, sorry, this doesn't work. There are mosaics, glass mosaics, representing stories from the Bible and the New Testament. And these are other slides in which you can admire the mosaics, and you can just see something up here. So this is another view of the Palatine Chapel. I don't know if any one of you has been there. It's a quick Ryanair flight. It's quite it's a good place to go. But at the same time, so there are all these series of mosaics, but at the same time, surprisingly, as we look up, we see a wooden muqarnas or stalactite formation ceiling covered by splendid paintings executed in an Islamic manner, which also include Arabic inscriptions, as you can see here, in Kufic script, but also this sort of stalactite muqarnas formation of this ceiling is extraordinary, and each niche has its own painting. So they include Arabic inscriptions, a testimony to the syncretic culture of Sicily during the 12th century. The paintings, as this dancer, are very much in a Fatimid Egyptian style. And this is a map of the Fatimid Empire, and you can see that the pink area is the area dominated by the Fatimids during the 10th and 12th centuries. And you can see that Sicily is also part of it. And the Fatimids being the dynasty that reigned Egypt, Syria, and North Africa from the 10th to the 12th century. And we can see by comparing representations of various materials. So, for example, ceramic, this bowl in lustre painted ceramic of a dancer. So if we go back 1 second, we have the dancer here, and then we have a similar position of the dancer in the ceramic bowl. We have a dancer in ivory carving in relief from Fatimid Egypt, which is now one of the plaques in the Bargello Museum in Florence. And she is very richly clothing with embroidered textiles and and sort of veils for the dance. And you can see that the dancer is accompanied by a musician who is playing the tambourine, and this one here, this one in the Cappella Palatina, you can see the similarities of, for example, the headscarf in Fatimid material. Again, this is a ceramic fragment, and this is another ivory plaque. The Kingdom of Sicily under Roger II was characterized by its multi-ethnic nature and a degree of religious tolerance. Freedom of worship was preserved, with mosques, synagogues, Byzantine Orthodox churches, and Latin Roman Catholic cathedrals existing side by side. The normal Arab style of art and architecture flourished. And in art, we can mention the Mantle of Roger II, which is a fantastic piece. You can see it's red silk, which has been embroidered with gold threads. That means silk thread with gold thread wrapped around the silk, and then it's embroidered. And it shows two lions attacking camels and the tree of life, or a date tree in the middle. And you can also see that there is a long inscriptions in Arabic in the Kufic script, and we come to that in a second. So this was the mantle, the coronation mantle of Roger II. These are two details of the mantle where you can appreciate the embroideries and also some of the precious metals that were added to it. The inscription around the rim of the mantle reads, "This is what was made in the Royal Treasury." French translation, I hope it's okay. And it says that it was made in Palermo in 528 Hijri, which corresponds to 1133-34 of the current era. This mantle was used as a coronation mantle by emperors until at least the 18th century. So we can see here Albrecht Dürer's presentation of Charlemagne, and can you see that he's wearing the mantle of Roger? You can just see it. And you can see it even more in this painting that reproduces the portrait of Sigismund that he's wearing. So we are here in the 18th century, and he's wearing the mantle of Roger II, and part of the inscription is the Arabic inscription is depicted here. In architecture, we can mention San Giovanni degli Eremiti, which was a mosque, and you can see that it was a mosque by the mihrab, sort of protruding outside the wall. But it was then refurbished under Roger II, and also the multi-cupola type of architecture that reminds us of North African mosques of the 10th and 11th century, with these round cupolas, also what it would be the minaret, and now it's the bell tower. So it was re-established as a church under Roger II in 1136. So this is what we generally call the Norman Arab style. Another common mode of contact at the period was actually warfare. And it was armed conflict that was used by the peasants to seize booty from their raids on port cities in North Africa, Spain, and the Balearic Islands. And one of the things, the amazing things that they brought back is the so-called Pisa Griffin, it's this bronze griffin, which is quite big. It's the biggest bronze artifact that we have of the medieval Islamic world. And it's about 1 meter 7 high. It's about 90 centimeters and then 46 centimeters wide. The wings have been applied separately. As you can see, there are holes for the nails, but the body and the head and the legs of the griffin have all been cast in one piece. So it's a big enterprise. And the griffin has an inscription which goes in Kufic, in Arabic, in Kufic script, that runs along the 3 sides of its body. And you can see the details of the inscription here. Baraka kamila wa nima shamila, rikta kamila wa salama da'ima wa afya kamila wa sa'ada wa ida li sahibihi. So they are augural and benedictory mentions to the owner that, however, remains anonymous. The griffin, brought back by the peasants, probably from the Balearic Islands, was posed, you probably know very well the Pisa Cathedral with the Leaning Tower, the famous Leaning Tower. So was placed on top of the roof of the cathedral. So you can see it here, and this is a close-up of a copy because the original is now in the museum. And you can see it here more better. It's an aerial view of the cathedral. So this is the part of the apside of the church, so the apsidal area, and this is where the griffin was placed. Together with the griffin, most probably taken as booty again from Mallorca by the peasants, the peasants also brought back a capital, a Marco Andalusian capital. And this piece is very important, not least because it has an inscription with the name of the sculptor, Fath. And the name of the sculptor is up here, carved in Arabic, Kufic, in relief. Now, this is important because we actually know, we're fortunate to know that Fath was a major sculptor at the Cordoba court of the Umayyad caliphs of Spain in the 10th century. A piece of information that allows us to position the capital quite precisely in time, the second half of the 10th century, and in a geographical area, that of Al-Andalus. So this piece too was placed on the roof of the Cathedral of Pisa. So the griffin is here, and the capital was here, you can see, on the north transept, looking to the sea. So both griffin capitals were installed on the roof of the peasants' new cathedral, which was then consecrated in 1118. And I think I have another slide in which you can see the apsidal area of the cathedral and the griffin, the Islamic Andalusian griffin up here. And the griffin has been at the center of a research project that I directed, which lasted 30 years. And this is the original griffin that is now in the newly refurbished Museum of the L'Opera del Duomo in Pisa. So if you go to Pisa, please go and have a look at it. And this is the book that resulted from our research of a very, very long time. It was a multidisciplinary and multi-institutional research that, with the book that has been recently published. The Geniza documents, which record the activities of Jewish merchants in Fatimid Egypt, give evidence of healthy trans-Mediterranean trade connections as far back as the 11th century. And the historical accounts of the dispersal of the Fatimid treasury from the caliphal palaces of Cairo in circa 1067 specifically talk of precious objects, including rock crystals being sold in the markets. More significant elements of trade, though, were carpets and textiles, and it's not surprising to find that this fed into Italian art. So, for example, the crucifix by Cimabue in San Domenico in Arezzo, which is dated between 1265 and 1268, contains perhaps the earliest known examples of a Middle Eastern textile to be found in a Western painting. Now, if you look at, the Madonna here, she's holding a handkerchief. So the results of this textile that covers the back of Christ, which resembles very much Spanish textiles of that period, but if we look at the detail of the Madonna, so she is holding a very fine mandil handkerchiefs, and you can't really see it very well from the paintings, but the drawing shows that there are Kufic inscriptions, Arabic inscriptions. Now it's difficult to reconstruct whether they say anything or whether they're just letters, a series of letters. In the early 15th century, we find Hebrew in Andrea Mantegna, while Gentile da Fabriano, oh sorry, I forgot Giotto. So, because the Middle Eastern and Spanish Islamic textile begin to arrive in Italy with increasing frequency in the 13th and 14th centuries, as trade with Venice, Lucca, and Pisa grew. And in the early 14th century, such representation of inscriptions on luxury materials continue in the Giotto frescoes of Cappella degli Scrovegni, or Scrovegni Chapel, which is datable to around 1305, and this chapel is in Padua. Here we find textiles with pseudo-Arabic inscriptions in both angular and cursive script. So if you look at this figure in particular, I have a detail here, and you can see that again he's wearing a shawl, or she is wearing a shawl with bands of inscriptions with Kufic Arabic characters, almost like Tiraz textiles. In the early 15th century, we find Hebrew in Andrea Mantegna, while Gentile da Fabriano makes considerable use of Middle Eastern elements. In his Adoration of the Magi, for example, this is full of Oriental references, turbaned men and Arabic or pseudo-Arabic inscriptions on the luxurious textiles. For example, look at the belt of this figure here. It's got Thuluth type of Arabic inscriptions, but also, and I think I have the detail, look at the splendid textiles with Tiraz bands in Thuluth script, but also the halo of the Madonna and of St. Joseph are inscribed in Arabic with Kufic script. Such inscriptions are also found on the halos. And also in another painting by him, the Madonna of Humility. Now, you can see the inscription in Arabic here. It was previously thought, ironically, to approximate to, and so to be unwittingly derived from the Shahada, or the Muslim's declaration of faith. But it's probable that Gentile's source was not the Shahada, but rather metalwork. The halo inscriptions resemble Ayyubid and Mamluk Egyptian metalwork with regard to the layout and the core. So if you look at it, the halo has a series of letters in Arabic, then a rosette, then another series of letters, then another rosette, and so on. So there are, it's divided into 4 bands of inscriptions, like the Ayyubid or Mamluk metalwork, that also have Thuluth inscriptions. Then they are interrupted by a circle with flowers, and then they continue, and they are interrupted again, and so on. So the format is very similar. So it's possible that Gentile da Fabriano had one of these metalworks in mind. So the script is the typical Thuluth used on metalwork of the period, and the text on the halo of the Madonna approximates to the formulaic expressions of good wishes for the Sultan, which would typically be Izli Maulana, Sultan, Adil, etc. So glory to our Lord, the Sultan, the just king, etc. It's perhaps useful to think that Gentile da Fabriano's father was a textile merchant, so it is possible that he had these luxurious textiles coming from the Middle East in his father's workshop. So the water material culture was not the only form of contact and reception. For in Renaissance Europe, an interest in the Islamic world extended to certain areas of intellectual inquiry, to languages and to disciplines such as medicine and philosophy, and there was further an openness to its technology, as witnessed by the widespread adoption of the astrolabe. An appropriate example being this one, dated 1299 from Fez in Morocco, with Arabic and Latin inscriptions. So it has both Arabic letters or inscriptions here and here, but then it's got Latin inscriptions as well of the planet, of the stars. As is well known, Middle Eastern scholarship, including classical scholarship mediated through Arabic, had provided an important part of Europe's intellectual landscape since the 12th century, when Latin translations were made of important texts by such major figures as Arazi or Razis in Europe, Ibn Sina or Avicenna in Europe, and Ibn Rushd or Averroes. In Italy, the knowledge of and teaching of Arabic was fostered by such institutions as the Scuola Medica Salernitana, which flourished in Salerno between the 10th and the 13th centuries. This was the earliest medieval medical school in southern Italy, and the city of Salerno was the most important source of medical knowledge in Western Europe at the time. Much of this was based on Arabic material. For example, the 11th century Taqwim Masikha, or Almanac of Health, by the Iraqi physician Ibn Butlan. And you can see here a copy in the British Library, which is dated 1213, from which derives the Taqwinum Sanitatis. And here you have a European, so through the translation from the Arabic to Latin, then you have European manuscripts of Ibn Butlan, Aquilinus Sanitatis. So this is a lovely representation of the melons in this 14th century manuscript. While the book on the properties of plants by Dioscorides, which was translated in Baghdad in the 9th century from Greek into Arabic by Hunayn ibn Ishaq and a Greek collaborator, Istefan ibn Basul, was then translated from the Arabic into Latin. These two treatises, Ibn Butlan and Dioscorides, were to remain the basis for pharmaceutical and herbal writing in Europe until at least the end of the 17th century, accompanied by the increasingly voluminous commentaries of European scholars, such as the Italian physician Pier Andrea Mattioli. So you can see that he takes the Dioscorides treatise, so the Arabic one, and he then comments on it and updates it and says new things, and also with the addition of illustration. So this is a copy that was printed in Venice in the late 16th or early 17th century. In Spain, around 1300, we encounter an important but little known Arabic-Latin dictionary, probably commissioned by the religious authorities in order to help in the conversion of Muslims. And you can see it here. So you have the Arabic glossa and then the translation into Latin at the top. In the late 14th century, this manuscript was acquired by Niccolò de Niccoli, a Florentine humanist scholar, thereby entering the philological world within which the study of Arabic was to develop. During the Renaissance, we witness accordingly both a growing awareness of its importance alongside the biblical Semitic languages and an increasing humanistic concern with the culture it expressed. Scholars sought fresh manuscripts and produced new editions and translations, and the study of Arabic was recognized as a desideratum alongside Greek and Hebrew. The major area of concern remained, though, medicine and philosophy, and the treatise on medicine, Qanun fi Tibb by Avicenna or Ibn Sina, was to remain on the syllabus of many European universities until well after 1600, with more than one translation being printed in Venice during the 16th century. Unless commissioned by a wealthy patron, works in the original must have been uneconomical to print. But we have, nevertheless, an extraordinary copy of the Quran, printed in 1537 in Venice, one of the earliest instances of movable type being created for Arabic. It was in the possession of Teseo Ambrogio degli Albonesi, who lived between 1469 and 1540. He was a renowned scholar of Near Eastern languages, and we can see his annotations and also in some places his interlinear translation into Latin. You can see it here. So this is the earliest printed Quran, and you can see his annotation in Latin and translations here and here. Such intellectual endeavors extended and deepened lines of inquiry and speculation central to Renaissance thinking, and seemed to provide a parallel to the commercial strands that joined Renaissance Italy to the world of Islam. But do they? We have yet to find evidence to indicate that the aesthetic appreciation of Middle Eastern artifacts was conceptualized in ways connected with the world of ideas and scholarship, or that the Renaissance scholar perceived the Ottoman desk rack that demanded intellectual attention. In fact, I find a surprising lack of commentary on the foreign nature of Middle Eastern artifacts. By interpreting the reaction of the West towards the Middle East as fundamentally antagonistic, traditional scholarship has failed to give due weight to such positive aspects of contact. Without wishing to deny times of tension and the realities of military conflict, for present purposes we may remark upon the simple fact that during the Renaissance, trade continued even during periods of war, if by different routes, just as it had during the Middle Ages, when rock crystal artifacts, for example, were acquired and displayed, their beauty enhanced by the addition of sumptuous European mounts. Some may have been booty from Constantinople that went with Crusader prelates to the Holy Land, thus lending them an association with holiness that could well have been reinforced by a symbolic value inspired by the play of light on the rock crystal itself. And an extraordinary example is a bottle in the treasury of St. Mark in Venice, carved in relief, decorated with palmettes and scrolls typical of Fatimid Egyptian production. At some point it was housed in a silver casket, and in the mid-13th century it was mounted on a gold chalice by Venetian goldsmiths, enhancing the supreme preciousness of the relic and allowing it to be displayed. The bottle has an Arabic benedictory inscription around the neck, Baraka wal Izz, or benediction and glory, which is here, carved in relief. And the Latin one around the gold band of the mount, which says, Hic est sanguis Christis. This is the blood of Christ. And in fact, this is the very venerated reliquary of the Holy Blood. It is believed that it contains the blood of Christ, and it's encapsulated in this Arabic rock crystal bottle with an Arabic inscription. And it was shown by the Patriarch of St. Mark in special ceremonies. He would have a chain around his neck, a long chain, and then someone would sort of show to the audience, to the people, the reliquary. They couldn't touch it, but shown it very closely to the assembly in the cathedral. The complex process of transformation that this group of objects initiates is one affecting both function and perceptions, and was facilitated by extensive trading networks that both responded to demand and stimulated it. We certainly need to look at the Mediterranean less in terms of large-scale power blocks and more in terms of patchwork of commercial and cultural centers, participating in complex but loosely structured trading arrangements. In this context, the Italian city-states, and especially the maritime republics, were to become increasingly important. Middle Eastern artifacts were transmitted not only through Sicily and southern Italy, but also through the commercial and